Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a rainy pattern which is going to be taking over parts of the southwest. This is an area that's been getting a lot of drought issues over the past couple of months. We're an exceptional drought according to the Climate Prediction Center within this area, so it's definitely good to be seeing some rainfall. We'll even have a few pockets that are getting up near 3 or 4 inches of rainfall this week, so we're going to be covering this and timing out these storms for you guys who live down in the southwest. Taking a look at the current National Weather Service page, you can see that we have some excessive heat warnings and that kind of purple color for much of the southwest, including parts of California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, and also into Idaho and Oregon. We have a few heat advisories which are also scattered throughout the west, as well as some flood watches which are currently in effect for a little bit of New Mexico and also into parts of Washington, as well as another area in parts of just off of Lake Erie, and then another one in parts of southern New England and the coastal Northeast, as well as a few more heat advisories in parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland. Yesterday we had a high temperature of 128 degrees in Death Valley, California, with a low temperature of 29 in Peterson's, Utah. The highest rainfall report was in Smithland, Kentucky, where they got 4 inches of rainfall. No snowfall reports as of yesterday. Taking a look at the simulated radar, we're going to be timing this out for you guys. We're getting into a more active time period for this area, so luckily we are getting some rainfall. Last year we didn't see a whole lot of rainfall during the monsoon season when you're typically supposed to see a lot of rainfall, and we also didn't have a lot of snowfall during the winter time. And usually some of that snowfall or even rainfall in some of the lower elevations does translate into the summertime when it's a little bit drier for these spots. So we didn't get that much rainfall, that much snowfall in areas like Flagstaff or some of the surrounding mountain areas, and because of that, we didn't see too much precipitation in general over the winter. That's one of the peak times for getting that precipitation and drought relief for these areas, and we just saw a really dry winter. So we're finally making up for it with some of these showers. And this would be around 3 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow, and you can see that we still have a few showers in and around the southwest, mainly for parts of Colorado, Arizona, Utah, and into parts of Nevada as well, scattered throughout these areas. So it's going to be just a couple of scattered storms. And we're not going to see any torrential downpours, but it will definitely be good to get a steady rainfall. Getting torrential downpours, getting maybe an inch of rainfall in just 1 hour is definitely not good for these areas, since the ground is basically like concrete. It's basically so dry that it can't even handle that much rainfall. If you get a quick inch or an inch and a half of rainfall, that's going to do you no good. Not a lot of that is actually going to go into the ground. It'll end up just causing some street flooding. So that's definitely not good. Even half an inch of rainfall can flood some of these desert areas that are very dry. So you need some steady rainfall to kind of just ease the ground a little bit, to get it a little bit more movable, and then finally you can get a little bit more rainfall in there. So we're definitely getting a bit more of a steady flow of rainfall instead of just torrential downpours, which is definitely a good sign. Here would be by 6 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow, and you can see that we have still some storms in and around eastern Arizona, southern Utah, and some of the surrounding areas. There are a couple pockets of heavier rainfall within there, but for the most part, they are just steady areas of light to moderate rainfall, which is definitely good for these areas. Again, we wouldn't want to see any really heavy downpours, because most of that is not going into the ground. It's just going to end up flowing off and really won't have too much of an impact on the drought relief. Taking a look at this would be 9 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow, and you can see that we still have some of that rainfall in parts of eastern Arizona, northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and southern Utah. So it's still raining in many of these areas. Eastern Arizona is going to be the real hot spot in terms of rainfall. These are the areas where over the next couple of days we're going to see continuous flows of rainfall, and it's really not going to stop in these areas. That's definitely good. We're getting all the drought relief we need in that spot, and that's really good because that's the area of Arizona that actually has the highest amount of drought issues. The western part of Arizona actually got a little bit of drought relief just a few weeks ago. So the eastern part of the state, very, very dry, and that's the area that's getting most of the rainfall this time around, which is a good sign. Taking a look at right around midnight tomorrow night, you can see that we still have some rain for parts of Arizona, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico. Again, it's just a steady rainfall, nothing too heavy in terms of the downpours. You're now starting to see this kind of fizzle out a little bit. This would be by Wednesday early in the morning, and then here would be by 6 in the morning, mountain time, and you're still dealing with a few clusters of storm in parts of Arizona and Southern California. Although it is petering out, you're not really dealing with too much intensity in that rainfall. And then you can see really fizzling out by Wednesday late in the morning into the early afternoon. Taking a look at the total rainfall from the NAM model, you can see that we are expecting, again, a few isolated spots that are going to get a few inches of rainfall, so 2 to 4 inches of rainfall within especially the higher elevation regions. Looking at some of the mountains in central Arizona, getting some of the heavier amounts of rainfall, and that should stream down into some of the rivers and big water sources, and that should definitely help a little bit with that drought relief. You're not dealing with too much total rainfall. You're not dealing with a widespread area of rainfall in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, or Utah. It's going to be in these isolated areas where you get 1 or 2 storms over the course of the next couple of days, and that'll basically be your supply of rainfall for the entire week. So you're going to get 1 or 2 storms that you really need to give you the adequate amount of rainfall, and that'll be pretty much it for this week in terms of the total amount of rainfall. Taking a look at the chances of excessive rainfall. Now, the reason that you're seeing this up for these areas is because they are much more flood prone than an area, let's say, in Mississippi or Alabama, where the ground is a lot more saturated. It takes a lot more to flood in those areas. You can take 3 or 4 inches of rainfall to flood in just an open forested area of Alabama or Mississippi, compared to an area like Arizona or New Mexico in the desert, where we're dealing with very, very dry ground. You only need maybe a couple tenths of an inch of rainfall to kind of just stand on top of that ground, because it's not going to be picked up too well unless you can have it stand there for a couple of hours, where finally it'll start to go into the ground. So you can get a lot of flooding quite easily with these types of situations, and that's why, even though you're maybe not dealing with a ton of rainfall over a fairly long period of time, over over an entire week, we're dealing with maybe 1 or 2 inches of rainfall, but because of the ground and how dry and hard it is a little bit easier to flood in these areas. So you can see that we have a marginal 5 to 10% chance of flash flooding all throughout parts of New Mexico, Arizona, and into a little bit of Nevada and California. And then we have a 10 to 20% chance, or a slight risk, in parts of western New Mexico and southeastern Arizona, where we have a slight risk of flash flooding, and that would be for today. If we look at for tomorrow, you can see that we have a 10 to 20% chance all in eastern Arizona and southern Arizona. And then we have that marginal risk, which just covers the rest of the 4 corners, especially in areas like southern Utah, southern Colorado, and northern New Mexico, as well as much of the state of Arizona. And then if we head on over to the Wednesday outlook, you can see that area only continues to expand. We have a slight risk in this area for southeastern Arizona and western New Mexico, with still that slight risk. And then we have that marginal risk, which extends through the majority of Arizona, southern Utah, southern Colorado, and into northern New Mexico. Taking a look at the Weather Prediction Center's 7-day rainfall outlook, you can see that they're a little bit high on the totals compared to some of the shorter range models. Now, we're going to have to see which one is exactly correct, but we are looking at, especially later in the week, that I think we could be dealing with a lot of rainfall potentially by the late part of the week, especially in southeastern Arizona. But we're dealing with amounts that in that red color will be 2 to 4 inches, and then even in that gold color, maybe getting up over 4 inches in parts of Arizona and New Mexico. In the purple color, that's where you're looking at 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, half an inch to an inch in the blue. In the green, that's where you're looking at a tenth of an inch to up to half an inch of rainfall. So you can see that the the bullseye is going to be over central and eastern Arizona, as well as much of western and northern New Mexico, even into areas like Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. We're dealing with some of that rainfall as well, and even getting zero point 0.2 inches, zero point 0.3, zero point 0.4 inches. That'll definitely help to kind of ease out the ground a little bit, and it'll prepare it for a little bit more rainfall, which we might get over the course of this summer season. If we look at the drought monitor, this is really good news because when you compare this, and I'll continue to kind of just flip back and forth, here's the total rainfall over the next 7 days, here's the drought monitor. You can see how some of those areas that are getting the highest amounts of rainfall, which I'll highlight here in this black color, this area right here, which is dealing with the heaviest amount of rainfall, if we look at the drought map, is also dealing with quite a bit of drought. We're in either extreme or exceptional drought in those red colors. So we're dealing with high levels of drought in these areas, especially eastern Arizona, western New Mexico, and those are the same areas that are getting a couple inches of rainfall. So I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe move them down that entire area down to extreme drought, or they kind of remove some of that exceptional drought but still keep a little bit of it. We're definitely dealing with some of that drought being erased, and luckily we are going into the monsoon season for these areas, usually one of the more active time periods, so we're going to definitely need to get our money's worth of rainfall over this time period, because once we get into the fall it might dry back up. So we're definitely going to hope that they get as much rainfall as necessary to relieve all those drought issues. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.